entrepreneurs, especially starting out, you hear so many no's and there's so much rejection. And you have to get used to that because you're going to hear rejection throughout your entire life. The
Mhm.
most important thing, though, is to make sure that you believe in your idea and that you have validated it, right? I mean, everyone can have an idea. Most of them are probably bad. But if you
Right.
truly believe in the idea and you just believe that it's missing that spark, I would say you haven't found the right partner, right? So you've got to go find the right partner and yeah.
Hey, listeners. In this episode of Tech in 26.2 Pod, I sit down with Mohammed Iqbal, the founder and CEO of Sweatworks, a product focused health and wellness digital agency based in Virginia with offices in Europe and also in Asia. Sweatworks works with brands like Nike, Strava, Garmin, Bose, to name a few. In fact, in addition to being an endurance athlete himself, Mohammed is also an investor and advisor to health and fitness startups, and also hosts a weekly latest in fitness and wellness healthcare podcast called Lifts. I sit down and chat with Mohammed about the starting journey of Sweatworks. Why did he choose to build a services company when he had the choice of building a product-based company in endurance sports or endurance tech industry? We also talk about how AI is playing a pivotal role and what the trends he has seen over the last 12 years and what he has seen the industry is heading towards as he worked with multitude of clients in health and wellness industry. I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode, and if you do, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get notified when I publish the next episode. Enjoy this episode. Welcome, Mohammed, to this podcast. I'm really excited to have you here.
Kamal, thank you so much for having me on.
Great. So I'll start with you what I found as a quick introduction to Mohammed Iqbal. Who is he? So I'll start with Mohammed is the founder and CEO of Sweatworks, a product-focused health and wellness digital agency based in Virginia, with offices in London, Manila, Miami, Montevideo, New York, and Shenzhen. You have more than 100 employees, you have 10 plus patents, and you have touched million plus digital lives. Sweatworks works with brands like Strava, Garmin, Bose, to name few. In addition to being an endurance athlete yourself, you are also an investor and an advisor of a lot of health and wellness startups. You're the host of a weekly latest in fitness, wellness, and healthcare podcast called Lifts. What did I miss, Mohammed?
You covered a lot. I mean, I've got to update some of those numbers. Those descriptions always make you sound better
Uh-huh.
than reality. But it's all good. No, I'm happy to be on and happy to go deep and take this wherever you would like it to.
Great. So I want to start with your starting journey of Sweatworks. I do understand that you have a fascinating story how Sweatworks came into being with your background, your past as a childhood. So can you take us back to that story and how it led to founding Sweatworks?
Yeah, for sure. So, one, I wasn't born in the US. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Dubai. My parents are from Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, they moved to the UAE in 1977, and I was born in 1980. And in 1991, we moved to the Americas. And, I think you're an immigrant as well, but I think
Yeah.
when I was in the Middle East, life was more homogeneous in that even Dubai was always a multicultural city, but it really wasn't as people think of Dubai today, right? It was
Right.
still a financial hub, still heavily expat oriented, but wasn't what it is today. So when I came here, it was a big culture shock to me, and I
Hmm.
think we had so many options that we didn't have over there, like so just going to the grocery store, the kind of meals you ate, and just you're just more active. We just like moved around more. I played
Right.
soccer all the time, and I just did a whole bunch of things. And when I came here, I kind of dove all in, and I kind of consumed a lot, and I gained a ton of weight. And in 1993, I just made a decision to say, you know what, I want to make a change. Like I don't like the way I look, I don't like the
Hmm.
way I feel. So I picked up a book called Optimum Sports Nutrition. in 1993, and that really changed the way I thought about nutrition. This is really before I kind of got into the fitness side of it. But the main thing that I saw that taught me a lot about macronutrition and micronutrition, right?
Okay.
Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then micronutrients like your vitamins and minerals and the impact that can have on you. And
Hmm.
at 13, by just making those changes to my diet, I saw a profound change in how I felt and how I looked. I just started just feeling better, and that impacted all aspects of my life. And
Hmm.
then I got into fitness, and I got into, running, and I got into playing sports, and I got into a whole bunch of other things. And the main um, conclusion that I saw is that if I put in the work and if I make
Right.
a change, then there's actually a reaction to that. And I think that's a piece that a lot of people, both young and old, in our country and around the world are missing, that they are in the position that they're in,
Hmm.
and they don't understand that by making a small change,
Hmm.
maybe it's a motion, but by making a change, it can have a positive and negative impact on your
Right.
well-being,
Right.
right? So I was fortunate to see that. And then I went to college and people said, hey, you're going to get on the meal plan. You'll gain the freshman 15. I think now it's the freshman 20,
Yeah.
first year of college. And then you get married and all these things, right, happen. And you have a career, you're working 100 hours a week, you're going to gain weight. And what I found is none of those things happened to me. That I went to college and I was actually able to stay in shape. In fact, I got in better shape. Then I
Hmm.
started working and I still continued with that. And even though I traveled all over the world and I was working a pretty intense job, um, I made this a part of my life. And that's the key thing that we can talk about later today is it's got to be a lifestyle. It can't be something
Right.
that you are saying, I'm just going to do this for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, but you've got to find a way to make it a part of your habit and kind of what you do.
Hmm.
And from listening to the other guests that you've had on your show, it sounds like they've also done that as well.
Hmm.
And I spent the first 10 years of my life working for a large electronics company, Sharp Electronics in Marlboro, New Jersey. They've
Hmm.
since relocated to Montvale, New Jersey, but it really taught me a lot. I was part of their executive management program. And in that, I got to basically every 18 months, I took on a different leadership role. So I
Hmm.
learned a lot about boring stuff like ERP systems. I did not even know what an ERP was.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about, product management and project management, hardware, electronics, and other components. And yeah, I mean, one of the key projects that I had to work on early on is we won the bid for the Apple iPhone. And that was a transformative movement for me because when I worked at Sharp, which was very much of a true Japanese company, everything was very tactical and transactional. So if I had a widget, if the widget did the job, that's really
Hmm.
all it had to happen, right? So if I had a button and I hit a button and the job of the button, I'm looking at my mic now, was to mute the mic.
Hmm.
If you muted the mic, that was great. But when we worked with Apple, again, we did not know it was Apple at the time, but the requirements are so specific
Hmm.
around the consumer experience that we not have to think about the functional aspect of what that button would do, which is to mute the mic, but the emotional response that that button um, gave back to the user.
Right.
So it really kind of challenged the way we thought about engineering and challenged the way we thought about design and hardware.
Hmm.
Um, so I did that for about 4 years. And, all along, I was, living kind of my wellness life, uncovering new things like what you're doing now, like speaking to thought leaders and just learning more and absorbing a lot about the industry.
Right.
And then I would go work out and do events and run marathons like you're doing.
Hmm.
And I didn't see a lot of technology being applied. So on one hand, in my day job, I was at the forefront of the mobile internet revolution, mobile
Right.
computing. I saw the App Store come out in 2009 when the iPhone came out with HD camera. Instagram blew up in 2009 because of
Right.
it. You saw Uber come up, WhatsApp come up, but no innovation happening aside from Runkeeper in 2009. No innovation happening in the fitness side.
Hmm.
And so after a decade, I said, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to bring my innovative kind of thinking and experience in hardware and technology with my understanding of fitness and kind of the things that I know,
Right.
and to create an agency to serve the companies that are already in there. I know we'll kind of talk about the reasons behind a product versus a services company, but that's the backstory behind why I started Sweatworks.
No, fascinating. So you combine your personal passion to stay fit, your understanding of the industry that you're being part of professionally, and you combined into a business that is service driven. which is an awesome way to do it because you are still being passionate, serving your customers who are in your niche of your personal interest, and then you're serving them as well. Now, as you alluded to the fact that Sweatworks is a digital agency, a services company, since you understand the hardware side working at Sharp, so you probably can choose either path. Like I can build a product because there is no innovation. I can come up with an innovative product, can be hardware or software, versus you're decided to be in the services side of it. Like how did you do transition and what data points you saw that time that made sense?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you're absolutely right. When I worked at Sharp, it was a product-focused company, right? So
Right.
Sharp invented the first mechanical pencil. They invented the turning table inside a microwave, the innovations of the copy machine, and so on. Aquos
Yeah.
TVs. So we were all really coming from a product-driven mindset, not a services kind of company. But what I did see is that when we were at Sharp and when we needed expertise outside and we needed a company to be fast and nimble, we hired those companies. I hired agencies on the outside to
Hmm.
come in and help me do things that we did not have experiences for. And the other thing which I noticed was that when you work for a large company, you tend to be more insular in how you think about innovation because on the back of your mind, you might spend a couple of hours thinking about innovation a day, but really think about operational and tactical things
Right.
that you have to accomplish as well. So you're
Right.
not fully kind of dedicated to that. But besides that, the first idea behind Sweatworks and the name Sweatworks, we were actually going to make a fitness app. So before
Ah,
we were a
okay.
services company, my original business plan, which I wrote in 2010, called
Hmm.
out to build a fitness app that pulled in various components. So we were going to focus on endurance, we're going to focus on strength. I mean, it was really ahead of its time. Now, when I once in a while I'll go back and I'll kind of read this 30-page proposal, which I kind of wrote for myself. And it was so we were actually going to go build a product. So
Hmm.
why did I switch to services company? And here's what happened. One, I am the only investor and the sole investor behind the company.
Hmm.
And I knew that if I went into the product side from speaking with like the founder of Runkeeper as an example at the time, he spent and raised tens of millions of dollars, and the majority of that was spent on acquiring customers. So I knew that even then it's more expensive, which we can get into a little bit later, but customer acquisition was going to be
Hmm.
incredibly expensive. And if I wanted to do that, I'd have to go out and raise capital. If I raised capital, I was going to have a board, I was going to have, and they were going to direct, and have leverage over directions. I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't want to do that. But then I kind of looked into really how difficult it was. And because I had a product mindset, I
Uh-huh.
knew how difficult building a product really is. So I wasn't naive to say that I'm going to start this thing, I'm going to build an app, and an app can be done in 3 months. I really knew
Right.
the infrastructure, the design, the user experience, all the work that goes into it. And I was at a pivotal point before I even founded the company.
Uh-huh.
And I either could say, I'm going to set up a company to be this consumer-focused D2C app product that had a white label component to it, or I'm going to create a services company. So I went with this concept, and early on, I actually pitched Joe DeSena, who was the founder of Spartan Race. So I met Joe
Oh.
DeSena before I founded Sweatworks, and talked to him about this. And he was like, well, and he was also relatively new to technology. It just started Spartan Race. It only had a few thousand people run through it at the time.
Hmm.
In a sense, that's how I met, Troy as well through that circle who introduced the two of us.
Hmm.
And I said, I could be better served by working with brands that already have an audience. So if my mission is wellness for all, and that's what I started this company with, even before I had a company, I said, my entire purpose was to find a way to leverage technology so I can enable people to lead healthier lives.
Hmm.
And if I just stuck true to that North Star, it didn't matter whether I made my own app and I controlled that, or
Uh-huh.
whether I worked on the services side to help other brands accomplish that. And I chose to go with the latter. Um, Looking back, I don't know what the right decision would have been. I mean, I know a lot of founders who built their own apps who are widely successful. At the
Hmm.
same time, we've been able to reach millions and millions of people that I don't know if we would have been able to do that if I didn't have a services company.
Right. That's a very good point. In terms of the economics, you touched on a very good point of customer acquisition cost or CAC that, if you have a product that you have to incur and usually triggers that you have to raise fund, or the runway is too small for you to you can die before you even see the first paid
Yes.
customer there. Um, did you see that the trade-off that you did was a easier ride in terms of customer acquisition in the services side? Because you still have to work through, and it can be longer cycle because you're talking about established companies with a established audience, right?
That's a really good question. And it's one that I had to learn the hard way. So
Okay.
no, so I did not recognize, because again, I came from a consumer background
Uh-huh.
and I was still in my 20s, right? I was really thinking about acquiring customers, like consumers.
Hmm.
I didn't view business as customer acquisition, but you're absolutely right that they are. So I
Hmm.
miscalculated that. That was one of my first mistakes, is to say, what is the cost to acquire a customer? And right now, I mean, for us as a company, the cost of acquiring a mid-sized business is about $150,000 to
Oh,
$200,000.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very high.
Hmm.
That's all the expense and the cost that kind of goes into the outreach, the sales process, all the things that we do to acquire a customer. So for every customer we get today, the ultimate cost for us is between 150 to $200,000. So we now have a CAC. But when I started the business, I didn't view it that way because I had, a network. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make a couple of calls, go present and go pitch.
Yeah.
Man, it wasn't easy. And I, before I actually, in fact, had a couple of bites, I had to do over 100 pitches,
Oh,
right? In
wow.
fact, there's 126 pitches, and the 126th person said, yes, I will take a chance on this person who's got an idea but has
Mhm.
no traction. So um, I underestimated, I think, the difficulty that it would take to start the business.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, that should be must be an interesting learning. And what is the cycle time for you with a 150K investment to for CAC?
Yeah, so typically what that leads to with that is a customer that on an annual basis, for us in a service side has a revenue of between 750 to just over 1 million. And
Mhm.
our average retention for customer is about 3 million. So for that
Okay.
amount, we acquire a customer that hopefully on the top line revenue side over the span of the relationship, nets us between, I'd say, 1.5 and 3 million. So roughly 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. And then I'm also curious because I always love the story of having a first paying customer. You said you have to go to 125 pitches to get the 126th work and someone taking a chance on you.
That's
Like,
right.
how was the experience, or who was it, or if you want to share some more into that?
Yeah, well, it's actually Nike was my first
Ah,
customer,
oh,
believe it or
okay.
not. Yeah, we built an innovation, a photo project with them, but it was really difficult. Obviously, I mean, the hardest thing I think when you hear so many no's repeatedly, you
Mm,
start questioning yourself,
right.
and you basically say, maybe this industry doesn't need technology. Maybe
Hmm.
this industry doesn't need innovation, and maybe things are just fine the way that they
Right.
are.
Hmm.
Right, because there wasn't a need for it. But if you truly believe in something, and for entrepreneurs, especially starting out, you hear so many no's and there's so much rejection. And you have to get used to that because you're going to hear rejection throughout your entire life. The
Hmm.
most important thing though is to make sure that you believe in your idea and that you have validated it, right? I mean, everyone can have an idea. Most of them are probably bad. But if
Right.
you truly believe in the idea and you just believe that it's missing that spark, I would say you haven't found the right partner, right? So you've got to go find the right partner. And yeah, for us, it was Nike. And then we work with Spartan Race and Reebok and Equinox and on and on. So
Hmm.
once you get that one, then that increases your profile and other people are going to come in and listen to you.
Oh, that's fascinating. But having landing your first customer as Nike must be a validation of your crazy ideas you had to solve challenges or opportunities, go after opportunities. So that must be a great feeling after 125 rejections for sure.
Yeah, well, so I wanted to part of this because we probably undercharged. I mean, our first
Okay.
project was only
Yeah.
$7,500.
Uh,
And I won't forget that. And now for the same thing, we'll probably charge $150,000, right? Or
yeah.
more. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. We still have a relationship with them. But yeah, no, it was some validation, but at that point, my main focus was really about innovating and creating a product that could be useful and continue to bring value, right? You have to take your
Yeah.
mind away from that and say, okay, now that I've won this and I have that money that they've given me the check, I now have to prove it and go do the work.
Yeah, I know. Looks like you have come a long way now. If you're thinking about, or if you're saying their average retainer is 3 million from the 750 or 70 to 100 to 3 million retainers, that's a long way to come. So
Almost
that's
as a routine.
kudos
I
to
think
you.
that's the life of the relationship would
Oh,
be
okay.
doing that.
Ah,
Yeah, the
okay,
life of
okay.
the relationship is that.
No,
But we
that's
have, no,
great.
I mean, right now, I would say our average project size is about 500,000. But you're
Okay.
right. So if that project was, 700, 7,500 to 500,000, we have come a long way.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome. Now, coming back to Sweatworks, I think your mission is wellness for all. And it's really bold, and I really love it that because it's calls out like what you specialize, what is your niche, and the core strengths are. Like how you are even approaching achieving that bold mission. It's 12 years, and it looks like you've done ton of projects, served ton of big names in the industry. How you are still pursuing that mission?
That's a good point. I mean, I think right now I'm looking for brands that have scale, right? So one of our engagements now is with the largest gym in the country called Planet Fitness.
Oh, okay.
And I had an opportunity to be with their executive team this morning, but that took time, right? So if you think about
Mhm,
we're now innovating for the largest gym in the country, that did not happen overnight.
mhm,
But so as we look to achieve that, I think you really have to stay true to it, but attack it from multiple angles. So a part of what we do, we might be innovating. Like I have this, Ultra Human Rig On, which is a new smart ring company based out of India, innovating for them, right? They're trying to enter with the US at the same time,
mhm.
working with a gym that has 18 million members.
Right.
So you really have to, I think, address all sides of the market, and then also think about what are solutions you could do to address people who aren't even in our field, right? If you think about the industry in
Mhm.
the United States, about 23 percent of the country, which of the able population belongs to a gym or a health club or a studio. That's it. I mean, but it's the highest in the world. Believe it or not, that number is the highest
Oh,
in
wow.
the world.
Okay.
So what we want to focus on in the next 5 years is to say, how do we get the other 78% of the people that don't belong to a gym, that don't have fitness as a part of their lifestyle? How do we reach them?
Mhm,
And there are some levers that have been made available through healthcare and insurance companies that we're going to try to do, but ultimately we want to reach that people.
mhm.
So really how you say true to your mission is you got to start by changing one life. So if you
Right.
have a big idea, so I think for entrepreneurs kind of thinking about starting the companies, your mission or vision statement needs to be a big idea. But
Mhm,
you don't have to do that on the first day,
mhm,
right? So my focus when I started this company in April of 2012 was to say, I want to just start by changing one life, and
mhm,
then the second one, and then the
mhm.
second one. I mean, you have run multiple marathons, right? The race starts with the first step, and then it's the second
Absolutely.
step. But if you think about 26.2 miles as an entire course, it would seem impossible because you're out of breath when you do a 4 mile training run
Right.
sometimes, right?
Right.
So you've got to really break it up in pieces. And that's how we started it. And
Mhm,
now looking at it now, yeah, we've come a long way, but we continue to have that attitude is to say that, yes, now maybe because of our position, we're able to have these bigger conversations and we're able to influence a larger audience.
mhm.
But I always go back to that time, like, hey, I just want to change one life to start.
That's a good start, called like coming back to the fundamentals. Like if you're changing
Yes.
one life, it can multiply millions and millions. It automatically or organically can happen. Um, One of the things that I love about Sweatworks service offerings is your uniqueness of combining hardware, software, and also using the latest technology that you integrate into you build the solutions for them. And you call this digital fitness lab.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on maybe with an example of a solution that probably you are on now or you but recently built?
Yeah, I can talk about a couple, and maybe I'll bring up an example that is spot on to your audience, which is the endurance community.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always believed, and again, this really goes back to my days at Sharp.
Mhm,
My first 5 years at Sharp, I was really focused on hardware and didn't
Hmm.
really think much about the consumer experience. My
Right.
last 5 years at Sharp, I was focused on both. How do we
Hmm.
blend the hardware and software together? And when you look at Apple and what makes their product so successful is that they are fully integrated from the experience all the way down to the firmware, and now even the chipsets, right? We're using the M1 processor where they're making their own silicone. So they've gone really deep.
Hmm.
And so when I started this company, I always felt like if we're going to build a front end experience, we have to understand what we're building it on, and we
Hmm.
have to make that experience designed for that platform. So if it's a watch, if it's a smartphone, if it's a tablet, I'm on a Mac right now, like whatever that is. So I think you've got to, and a lot of people, because of the App Store and what the App Store has allowed you to do, kind of really, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they really focus on the app, right? But to have a
Right.
truly immersive and integrated experience, I think you've got to go much deeper.
Right.
So that's what we did. And because of that, we have a excellent hardware team. We've built everything from wearables to consoles, power meters, and a whole bunch of other stuff, foot pods. But one example where I think having these two teams together is really helpful and not having two different companies is there's a product called Nix Biosensors. And I'm not sure if you've heard of Nix
Yeah, I
Biosensors.
saw your case on their website too. Yeah, I'll put it in the
Yeah,
show
so
notes for
Nix
sure. Yeah.
Biosensors is really gaining popularity right now within the endurance community.
Hmm.
It tracks your sweat loss, it analyzes it in real time, it tells you the composition of that sweat loss, such that it informs you on how to replenish and how to hydrate. So it tells you how much you lost and all that. So that was a pretty sophisticated project, something that they were trying to do before they hired us for many years.
Hmm.
But they had two different teams. They had a hardware team and they had a software team. We brought it
Yeah.
all together
Uh-huh.
and we put everyone in a room and said, we're going to tackle this problem together. And we did everything from the design on the outside to the chipset on the inside to the mobile app that's engaging with the consumer.
I
And
see.
what you have is a seamless experience. And whenever we have something on the front end that's wrong, maybe with the algorithm or something's not right, they could just either Slack or call someone into a Zoom. It's all the same company, right? So
Right.
there's no finger pointing. We own it. We own the full stack. It makes it better for our client. In this case, it's Nix. It makes it better for our team.
Hmm.
And we're all achieving the same goal together.
Oh no, that's amazing. But you did end to end
End to end.
from the user experience for Nix.
Yes, and even manufacturing.
Oh, you did the manufacturing too for them. Oh,
Manufacturing as well. Yeah, so we also do the manufacturing in China as well. So literally everything from
oh wow.
design to ideation to firmware. And I think because we're able to control that, especially for smaller companies that we might, and look, even a Planet Fitness in our world is a small company compared to an Apple, right?
Yeah.
Those things matter. The fact that we have those capabilities and skill set in our own small company
Right.
matters. And as far as I know, we're the only company in the US that actually does both of those things in fitness today.
Oh wow. Yeah, but because I do not say as I am my podcast focuses on Tech in 26.2. It's a very niche and I haven't seen anyone else doing what you do at Sweatworks, like end-to-end solutions for endurance companies or technology companies serving health and wellness industry as such, which is really fascinating to learn
Yeah.
and know about that. Um, as you are building these solutions, I would guess you have access to a lot of data that you see and you learn or you know about the industry data. One of the things that fascinates me, and I talked to Troy on this one, and I probably know because you know Troy personally, especially in endurance sports, I do feel like there is a data issue. It's not that data is not there; it is there, but it's very disintegrated. Like there are pockets, someone specializing in certain set of data, like running data. Someone has the running statistics data, but these are disintegrated. As you are seeing those data working with these clients or big brands that you work with on a regular basis, what trends you are seeing? Do you have a problem or you think there is a consolidation happening in the industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kamal. So I think let's start with endurance first.
Yeah,
In the scheme of things, a lot of endurance companies are relatively small. Now, even if you think about
right,
the largest running club in the US is the New York Roadrunners. And
right,
I think even them, they may have, I think it's 600,000 members or 700,000 members.
right.
Well, Equinox has more members, like just one gym, right, has
Yeah,
more
yeah.
members. Planet Fitness has 18 million members. LA Fitness has 7 million members. So the numbers are so much. And this is the New York Roadrunners is the largest, I would say, most sophisticated, most technology advanced running club probably in the world, right? In
Hmm.
terms of its capabilities and what they can do and house it, and then the events it put together. Then you look at registration companies. You look at a company like what Bob Bickel has with Run Sign Up, which is doing a phenomenal job
Right.
in all the incredible things that he's doing. But compare that to the largest payment providers, right? Or even what a single gym processes, on an annual basis. It's no comparison to everyone. The entire racing industry globally is a couple $100 million in terms
Right.
of value, right?
Hmm.
Planet Fitness is worth $5 billion, one
Right.
company, right?
Right.
Peloton, even though they've gone down from over 90%, they were 50 billion, but they're still a $1.5 billion company.
Hmm.
So I think a part of it is size. So that's one perspective to keep in mind. So what size gives you is access to resources and access to
Right.
manage data. And you're absolutely right. That data is completely fragmented. You've got registration data sitting in maybe a platform like Run Sign Up. You've
Hmm.
got timing data coming in maybe from a platform like Chrono Track or Mile Apps or something else.
Right.
Then you've got people like what Troy did with Athlinks, where they try to aggregate all the data to come together.
Hmm.
But that needs expensive data warehouses, data storage, data
Right.
scientists, right, to be able to bring it. Then you need to have APIs, and then there has to be a mutual interest to somebody where bringing that
Mm.
consolidated data is valuable.
Right.
And I think there might have been players like maybe Active, might have had a chance to do it. But
Hmm.
again, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, if that's still a term people use, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze and that it wasn't
Yeah.
valuable enough. However, um, I do believe that I said this, my first, my entire company was built around data because
Right.
we use data to really help understand the customer. We
Hmm.
hyper segment the data. We create custom journeys for you. We serve you up relevant, content, whether it's programming or whatever, based off of data. We use
Hmm.
data to help build programs. Today with AI, it's supercharged that. So
Hmm.
what I was able to like, what I had a team of like 30 people before,
Hmm.
I could now do with a team of 3 because
I see.
AI helps you analyze data at a speed and at a volume that was not available before.
Right.
So in order to make AI work, in order to make these LLM models work that we're building, you need to have an incredible amount of data. So for the running industry, and I'm working on a couple of projects with some large shoe companies that I can't really disclose now,
Hmm.
but I think I will say this: companies like Strava,
Hmm.
like Runkeeper, and others that are collecting a large amount of data, I think are going to be at a leadership point in terms of doing something with it, and they already are.
Right.
For the endurance of, yeah, so I don't see. I guess the simple way to say is, do I see data innovation happening at the event side? There's going to be some, but I don't think anything is significant. On the registration side, probably not. But again, some to serve the registration need, but nothing that is going to be holistic.
Right.
Where I see that happening is going to be, I notice you have an Apple Watch,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
just look at, and I have a Polar, look at what Apple just released at at the Worldwide Developer Conference 2 days ago,
Right.
right? That they're releasing a new app called the Vitals app. They're
Yep.
giving you training loads similar to what an endurance watch does.
Yeah.
They already give you metrics on your power and I mean all these things, all based off of data. So I think data innovation in our industry is going to happen at the macro level,
Hmm.
looking at wearable companies, data aggregators like Strava and others,
Yeah.
but not really at the event side.
Yeah. No, that's a very good perspective, for sure. If I wear my consumer hat on, so you talked about from an industry point of view that how you're seeing that the data is helping them or putting them in a position where they can leverage, and leveraging AI on top of it. But if I put on the consumer hat, like I'm a say endurance athlete, um, do you see a similar trend where um, willing to use more tech into your routines has led to collection of those data that companies are leveraging that? Do you see any trend, like if you're working with clients and their experiences, the personas that you talked about 12 years ago versus now, has that landscape changed or evolved?
Significantly. Yeah, so I've always said wearables is like the third dimension, right? So if you think about the first dimension being a digital platform, let's just let me correct that. first dimension is physical. You come to an event, you walk into a gym, you can kind of collect data from experiences that you're seeing there.
Hmm.
When do you check in? What time do you come in? What equipment do you use?
Yeah.
The second dimension is digital. How do you experience my brand on a website or on a mobile app? Like how are you
Yeah.
interfacing with me? And then we could kind of curate an experience there. The third, I would say, is wearables, right? Because now we know not only what you're doing when experiencing our product, if you're a gym or an event, but also what you're doing outside. And then we can inform you on those decisions outside of the club, such as that you do better in the club. So here's an
Right.
example, right? If we're able to say that, alcohol or coffee, when you have that, for me, for instance, having caffeine late or having alcohol late at night really impacts my sleep and my recovery.
Hmm.
So my gym could tell me, hey, Mo, um, don't do these things because we know you like to come in to work out at, 7 in the morning. So in order for you to get good sleep and come in, to achieve your fullest potential, we recommend that you don't drink caffeine after 5 and you have your last drink at 7 or something like that.
I see.
Um, so it's given us this whole new angle that we didn't have before, and that is
Mm.
only accelerating. Now, what I do see happening though is, you might have several devices. So for instance, on my left hand, I have an Oura ring and have
I see
Polar's,
that. Yeah.
right? On my right hand, I have an Ultrahuman just because we're testing this.
Yeah.
Usually I don't have something on my right hand.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and a lot of people that have an Aura might have an Apple Watch or something else, but I think that there's going to be we talked about Nix for sweat collection.
Hmm.
What I think is going to happen in the next 5 years is consolidation. And I think that there is going to be some level of fatigue around data, that people are going to get overwhelmed with data, right? So we're
Hmm.
very cognizant of that. And I think you look at even what Apple did, a couple of days ago, talking about the rings, and you might have seen that
Yeah.
they've announced a pause on I think that's fantastic because
Right.
what I've noticed with people on Apple Watch is that they always are driving to close the rings. Oh, just close the ring, close the rings. Well, guess
Yep.
what? Sometimes not closing rings is okay,
Yeah.
but then they don't get their streaks. So I think streaks are important because it's it's an important like emotional achievement. So now Apple understood that.
Hmm.
Um, so I think we're understanding that data is excellent and we could lead better lives because of data and wearables, but you don't want it to overstress you either.
Yeah, because now as a consumer has so much choices. Like you are wearing three technologies in your two, both of your
Yes.
hands. It's like, and there are more choices now. You may put a hoop belt as well.
Yeah.
That's so many options you have. Educating or myself as a consumer is a big deal. And I think a lot of companies are trying to do that way too. Another way of looking at it, and I'll be curious your perspective on this one is there are so much. If I go to an app, like for example, I have, say you have Aura Ring, and if I go to the app, the data it's collecting, there are a ton of data is being collected. How does someone make a sense of it? I do see there is a gap. There is a long way to go. Like, okay, you're collecting so much data. How do I figure out like what should I listen to? Like what do I should care about, right?
I can tell that it's coming. And even with brands
Hmm.
like Aura, I can tell you it's coming. And one of the challenges that these companies have, or
Hmm.
have rather, is that they started collecting the data, they started building out these recommendation models. But to build a good model, guess what you need? A lot of data,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, the chicken or the egg thing, right? So in order
Hmm.
to get the recommendations, you need to collect the data. So now companies like Apple, because they have, over 10 million, like they sell over 10 million watches a year, probably has the most data. Aura, Whoop, these companies are now going to start looking at the data that they've been collecting over the last several years
Right.
and now helping drive actionable changes. And in fact, the Ultrahuman, one of the things that I noticed in this Ultrahuman app is it actually tells me now and say, hey, in order to achieve the most stimulant-based response, drink caffeine within these hours. Don't,
Hmm.
it's already telling me in the app what to do. And I've only had this thing for a few days, but that just tells you where things are going. It's going to
Hmm.
happen. But I get that question a lot where, okay, Aura told me I slept bad. Now what? Or tell me that
Right.
my recovery score is bad. Well, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah,
How do I
yeah.
change my day? So I've tried to do that. I do try to look at my recovery score and hopefully that informs my behavior. But that's just because I'm in the industry and I talk to people like you and all these other leaders where I know. But for
Hmm.
the average consumer, how are they going to know? So I would just
Right.
say sit tight. You'll see a lot of new innovations coming out this year that's going to help further inform that.
Yeah, so for my audience, then it's probably actionable insights are coming as the industry is learning more and more, figuring out what data or what actions a person should do next based on the data they just collected or that is not observed there. You touched on the AI side a little bit more. I'm also curious to get your perspective on, especially on the endurance tech. We talked a little bit of consolidation. You talked about fragmented data points. How is the industry you see that's changing as AI is becoming prevalent pretty much every technology or every solution that is there?
Well, I think AI today is incredibly frothy.
Mhm.
And one thing I would caution people of is to say, as we have an AI note taker on the Zoom call,
Yes.
I would caution people of overthinking AI. So when we
Hmm.
think about AI, we're not looking for a problem to solve with AI.
Hmm.
AI is a tool for us to solve a problem. And that's
Right.
something that is, really important.
Hmm.
So I think, AI is going to have an impact, especially as we look to use all this data to help train large language models, which is then going to help drive the recommendations and the next set of answers that come through.
Hmm.
Um, but I think like right now, there's so much noise around AI. It's almost like the internet in 1998, right?
Right.
Where it's hard to see like where the chips are going to fall. And look, I'll give you a simple example. Um, in 1998, the DOJ sued Microsoft because all we knew was Internet Explorer, and Internet
Right.
Explorer was a part of every operating system, right?
Mhm.
And what did they have in there? They had their own search engine called Bing.
Right.
And if the government didn't step in, we would be saying, I'm going to Bing this. But what happened?
Yep.
The government stepped in and it said, no, you cannot default a search engine or browser on your OS. And then Google was formed. And now we're
Right.
saying, I'm going to Google something.
Hmm.
That very thing is happening in AI. But in 98, how many people knew about Google? They'd be thinking they'd be thinking about Bing, maybe Yahoo, like
Netscape.
all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
Netscape, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where we are today in AI. So before people run towards one direction, I
Hmm.
think most people, and we're certainly trying to do that, is to keep an open mind
Hmm.
and look where the options are. And obviously, you're seeing cases like OpenAI, for example, is
Right.
being sued by the DOJ, and and this is our democracy at work, right? This is
Right.
innovation work, and I think you're going to see companies come up. But right now, there's so much going on in AI. You're right, AI is in seemingly everything, but as a business, as a consumer, I
Hmm.
would definitely be cautious around how you use it. And I'll give you one other point is you look at Chat GPT, which is a tool I use, and I'm sure you use.
Hmm.
When you Google something, you could at least see what the source is. You could say, okay, I'm
Right.
Googling something, it's going to Wikipedia. And if you remember in the early days, Wikipedia was like a horrible source. It's gotten better, but it was
Yep.
a horrible source, right? So look, okay, I'm not
Yep.
going to use that. I'm going to use something else.
Yeah.
So you could
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
what the reference is. But when you ask ChatGPT a question, it just gives you an answer.
Right.
You don't know what the source
The
is, right?
reference. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what the reference is. So I think people have to use AI a little bit cautiously, but by all means, I would say use it, but
Hmm.
understand that we are in the very, very early days of AI today.
That is a very, very good point. Um, I have seen that a lot of, especially in endurance tech, Mohammed, that a lot of companies are spinning up using AI. And I'm not sure what is your take on it. For example, in one industry, probably if familiar with is the training or industry or marathon training or AI-based training apps that are popping up like every now and then. Um, what is your take on it? Is that the industry that probably kind of ready to be kind of changed on AI can be leveraged more to build more uh, better experiences for the athletes?
It's a good question. Again, I know how much work and funding goes into a really good AI platform.
Mm,
So what
yeah.
you find is that, entrepreneurs, and again, sometimes they'll come up with great ideas. I'm not saying they're being malicious about this, but they will build an AI coaching platform on top of a very, available model and be like, look, it's going to output you a marathon program, output you a 5K
Yeah.
program. And you could do this instead of going to a running coach and getting an actual program written. Personally, I'm not going to trust a program generated to me from AI because I know that in order to train a model, you need vast amounts of data. Now, if a Garmin or a Polar or
Hmm.
an comes out with an AI-based running coach or running program, I would probably be more willing to accept that
I
than if
see.
it's with one of these startup companies, because to your point earlier, they have the data to be able to
Mhm.
do that. We launched an AI coaching app, not running based, but really, just overall workout based for Lifetime Fitness.
Oh,
Just
okay.
launched it in June. We
I see.
started this last summer,
Hmm.
and we worked with Microsoft Azure and OpenAI on this coaching program. And the alpha release of it in December was a failure. Right? It didn't work.
Oh,
Not because
okay.
it's just because so then we fed it with even more data. We took 10 years of Lifetime's personal training data. We
Mhm.
fed the model, and then we had the outcomes that we wanted, right? So initially, we only fed it with 3 months worth of training data, and that wasn't
Oh,
enough. So we'd feed it with 10 years worth of training data, and then we got the outcome that we wanted. Most of these companies that are out in the market today do not have access to that type of data. They just don't. So
right.
again, as a runner, I would say listen to your coach. My coach is
Mhm.
my wife, who's sitting next to me. But
Okay, that's great.
listen to your running coach if you have access to one, or people that you know who've done it, or more established, like the Macmillan training program or whatever, more
Mhm.
established programs for now, and have fun with the AI. Kind of see what it tells you, but I wouldn't rely solely on that.
No, it's a very good point. So basically, you're suggesting any endurance athlete who want to say go for, hey, I can get a free training plan on this app. Use it with caution because you don't know how much data went in to pop up
No,
that training plan for them because they don't have the context, they don't have the vast majority of the data that went in to generate this
that's
plan
right.
for them. Yeah. So it's a cautionary tale that they have to make sure that they use their own judgment before they just go with a plan that is generated by just a model from there. Any parting thoughts, Mohammed, for our audience in endurance tech?
I think there's a lot of innovation that's going to happen. I
Mhm.
think we're going to, see big tech companies and fitness companies join forces. And you've seen examples of this. I mean, High Rocks, for example. I don't know if you know what High Rocks is or not, but High Rocks, if you haven't, go check it out. It's
Sure,
a
I'll
it's
do.
a it's a 5K run. You do some obstacles in between, or a Spartan race. They're getting a lot of attention from the broader fitness community
Oh,
into it. There's a lot of tech and innovation happening. So I do think that these next 5 to 10 years is going to be incredible
mhm.
for the endurance community in terms of technology. You even have companies like Apple who are now
Right.
investing in our field. So
Oh, well.
lots of excitement to come. This is a good time to be in fitness and to be in technology.
No, thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation, Mohammed, and really learned so much about what you do, what Sweatworks does, and how you're achieving your mission of wellness for all. So really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, Kamal. Have a great day.
Thank you.